I couldn't stop smiling as soon as I entered my new home. It was a modest two-bedroom flat with old kitchen cabinets and worn-out carpet, so it wasn't very elegant. It was mine, though. I finally had a place of my own after wasting money on rent for 14 years. I spoke aloud, Lucy's place, simply to hear the sound. I'm Lucy Wilson, a 32-year-old homeowner as of right now. I hadn't told my family about it at all. I wanted to observe their reactions when I informed them, especially my parents, who had been implying for years that I should settle down like my younger sister Kate, not because I didn't want to share my happiness. The golden kid is Kate. At 29, she had their gorgeous 3-year-old daughter, Emma, and the ideal husband, Mark, who was employed in finance. They rented a lovely home in a neighborhood with matching mailboxes and streets lined with trees. The earth they trod on was almost a form of devotion for my parents. I looked at my timepiece. We have a monthly family meal, and I had committed to arriving at my parents' place by 6 o'clock. However, I had some news to give this time. It took 15 minutes to travel to my childhood home. Kate's SUV was already parked in the driveway, and even though it was late, I didn't mind. Nothing could bring me down tonight. My dad screamed out, "There she is," as soon as I entered. He was watching a game on TV while enjoying a beer in his favorite chair. I said, "Hi, Dad," and leaned in to give him a cheek kiss. From the kitchen, Mom stuck her head out. "We're almost ready, Lucy, honey." Kate brought her renowned spaghetti salad with her. Kate was setting up something on a serving dish in the kitchen when I went there. For a moment, she raised her gaze. "Oh, hey, Lucy." Her focus instantly shifted back to her culinary creation. I said, "Need any help?" Kate said, "No, I've got it under control," without raising her gaze. "Mom, did you remember to chill the white wine?" "Obviously, my love. I bought 2 bottles of the one you brought last time because it was so delicious," Mom replied, grinning at Kate. As usual, I felt invisible as I stood there. The dining table was where we all sat. Talking endlessly about Mark's recent promotion at work, Kate took over the conversation. She declared with pride, "They're giving him his own team now, along with a big rise. We intend to renovate our home in the near future." My folks gave me a nod of approval. Mark remained silent, despite his uneasy appearance. Mom remarked, "That's great. You deserve a bigger place, especially with Emma growing so fast." I inhaled deeply after realizing my opening. Actually, I have some news too. Everyone gave me a mildly interested gaze. "I bought a house," I said, my voice bursting with pleasure. "I received the keys today. It's in a pleasant, peaceful neighborhood, however, it's not very big." The table fell silent. My dad's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Kate stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You bought a house?" Mom finally said. "Why didn't you tell us you were looking?" "I wanted it to be a surprise," I explained, my smile fading a little at their reactions. Dad put his fork down. "Lucy, why would you make such a big decision without consulting us? Your sister needs housing more than you do." I blinked, confused. "What?" "Well, Kate and Mark are renting. And with Emma, they need more space," Mom explained, as if it were obvious. "You're just one person." My stomach dropped. I bought the house with my own money. I've been saving for years. "Still," Dad said, shaking his head. "Family helps family. You should have talked to us first." Kate pursed her lips. "So where is this house? What's it like?" "It's on Maple Street," I said, my voice stiff. "It's small but nice. You're all welcome to come see it tomorrow if you want." I wrote down my new address on a napkin and handed it to her. The rest of dinner passed in awkward conversation, with Kate going back to talking about Mark's promotion and their plans for the future. No one asked more about my house. As I drove home that night, the joy I'd felt earlier had dimmed. I'd expected congratulations, maybe even a toast. Instead, I'd gotten disapproval and the distinct feeling that I'd somehow done something wrong by buying myself a home. The next day, I spent the morning cleaning and preparing for my family's visit. I baked an apple pie, Mom's favorite, and made sure everything looked as nice as possible. At exactly 2 o'clock, The doorbell rang. Kate was the first one in, her critical eyes scanning everything. Mom and Dad followed, with Mark trailing behind carrying Emma. "It's cozy," Mom said, which I knew was her polite way of saying small. "The kitchen is outdated," Kate commented, running her finger along the countertop. "I'm planning to renovate eventually," I said, trying to keep my voice upbeat. "I just need to save up a bit more." Kate pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. "Just want to look at everything carefully later," she explained, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We toured the whole house, which didn't take long admittedly. With each room, their expressions grew more satisfied, as if my modest home confirmed something they'd suspected. "Well," Dad said when we finished in the second bedroom, which I'd set up as a home office, "it's simple, but it'll do for you alone." "Thanks, Dad," I said flatly. "We should get going," Mom said, checking her watch. "Emma needs her nap." "But I made pie," I said. "Won't you stay for a slice?" "Maybe next time," Kate said, already herding everyone toward the door. "Emma gets cranky if she misses her nap schedule." And just like that, they left. No congratulations. No housewarming gift. Not even a slice of the pie I baked specially for them. I stood in my living room after they left, looking around at my little house. It might not be as fancy as Kate's rental, but it was mine. And despite my family's reaction, I was proud of it. The next few weeks flew by as I threw myself into making my little house feel more like home. I couldn't afford a full renovation, but I managed to paint the walls a warm cream color, replace the worst of the carpeting with affordable laminate flooring, and update the kitchen hardware. I even found a cute second-hand dining table at a local thrift store that fit perfectly in my breakfast nook. I hadn't heard much from my family since their brief visit. Mom called once to check in, but the conversation was stiff, and she spent most of it talking about Kate and Emma. I didn't bring up the house again. November was ending, and with Christmas approaching, I had an idea. I'd host the family Christmas dinner at my place this year. It would be the perfect housewarming party, too. And maybe once they saw how I'd fixed up the place, they'd be more supportive. I decided to bring it up at our next family dinner. Walking into my parents' house that evening, I felt optimistic and excited. Dinner was the usual affair, Kate dominating the conversation, while my parents nodded along admiringly. I waited for a lull, then cleared my throat. "I've been thinking," I said. "Christmas is coming up next month, and I'd love to host it at my place this year. It could be a housewarming, too." There was a brief silence. Then Kate laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a full, dismissive laugh. "No one's going to come to your place for Christmas," she said. "Everyone's coming to our house like they always do." I stared at her. "What?" "But I haven't even hosted once. It's not fair that you get to have it every year." Kate rolled her eyes. "Lucy, be realistic. Your house is tiny and uncomfortable. Mine is professionally decorated and has plenty of space." I looked to my parents for support, but Mom was nodding along with Kate. "Honey, Kate's house is much more suitable for entertaining," Mom said. "It's bigger, more comfortable, and frankly, Kate has better taste than you do." The words hit me like a slap. I sat there, stunned into silence, as they continued discussing Christmas plans as if I hadn't spoken at all. They decided on the menu, who would bring what, and even planned the seating arrangement, all for Kate's house. I couldn't bear it anymore. I pushed back my chair and stood up. No one tried to stop me. No one followed me to the door. I heard their conversation resume before I'd even left the dining room. The drive home was a blur. I kept hearing Mom's words, "Kate has better taste than you do," as if that was a reason to dismiss me, to ignore my wishes. When I got home, I walked through each room slowly, looking at everything I'd done. The freshly painted walls, the new curtains I'd sewn myself, the bathroom vanity I'd stripped and refinished. Sure, it wasn't professionally decorated like Kate's rental, but it was mine, created with my own hands and hard work. That's when I made a decision. I wouldn't back down. I deserved to host Christmas just as much as Kate did. I sat down at my computer, opened my social media page, and started typing. Big news, everyone. I'm hosting Christmas at my new home this year. It'll be a housewarming party too, since many of you haven't seen my place yet. Food, drinks, and festive cheer provided. Just bring yourselves and your holiday spirit. Details to follow, but mark your calendars for December 25th at 2 p.m. I hit post before I could second-guess myself. Within minutes, comments started appearing. "Congratulations on the new house, Lucy. Can't wait to see it," wrote my cousin Jen. "I didn't know you bought a place." "That's awesome news, count us in," replied my Uncle Dan and Aunt Melissa. "So proud of you, Lucy. First-time homeowner." "We'll bring the wine," commented. My college roommate, Tara, who'd remained a close friend, had lifted my spirits with her positive responses. Maybe my immediate family didn't appreciate what I'd accomplished, but others did. I went to bed feeling vindicated. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a notification. Kate had made a new post. Curious, I opened it and felt my stomach drop. "Christmas at our house this year. For those trying to decide where to spend the holiday, here's a helpful comparison of the options." Beneath her text were side-by-side photos of her house and mine. Her photos showed her spacious, professionally decorated living room with its vaulted ceiling and marble fireplace. Next to it was the unflattering photo she'd taken of my living room during her visit, before I'd painted or updated anything. "Where would you rather spend Christmas?" her caption read. "Vote in the comments." I scrolled down, feeling sick. Some relatives had refused to participate in her childish poll, with cousin Jen even writing, "Not cool, Kate." Both homes are lovely in their own way. But others had chimed in with comments like, "Kate's place looks amazing and no contest." The worst was seeing my parents' likes on the post. Mom had even commented, "Kate's house is perfect for hosting. Her taste is impeccable, and we're looking forward to celebrating there." I put my phone down, hands shaking with anger and hurt. This was beyond petty. It was cruel, and my parents were encouraging it. As I sat there trying to process this betrayal, something else occurred to me, something I'd been putting off dealing with for too long. I opened my banking app and navigated to the scheduled transfer section. There it was, monthly transfer to Catherine Wilson, $2,200. Next payment in 14 days. For 2 years, I'd been paying Kate's rent. It had started when Mark temporarily lost his job, and Kate and my parents had begged me to help. I'd suggested they move to a more affordable place, but Kate had insisted her house was perfect, especially for Emma. So, I'd agreed to help temporarily. But even after Mark found a new job with better pay, I'd kept paying, partly out of habit and partly because no one had mentioned stopping. Now, looking at the scheduled transfer, I realized what a fool I'd been. While I'd been scrimping and saving for my modest house, I'd been bankrolling Kate's perfect lifestyle, the same lifestyle she was now using to humiliate me. With newfound resolve, I canceled the transfer. Then I made myself a cup of coffee and sat on my porch, feeling lighter than I had in years. 2 weeks passed, and I focused on preparing for my Christmas gathering. I'd received confirmations from several relatives and friends, and I was excited to show them my home. The RSVPs were a mix of supportive relatives who had condemned Kate's post and friends who had always been there for me. I was making a list of groceries when my phone rang. Kate's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello. What the hell, Lucy?" Kate's voice was shrill. "The rent payment didn't come through. We need to pay by tomorrow, or we'll get a late fee." I took a deep breath. I canceled the transfer. "You what?" she practically screamed. "Why would you do that without telling me? We need that money." "Kate," I said calmly, "I've been paying your rent for 2 years now. Mark got his job back ages ago, and now he's even been promoted. You don't need my help anymore." "Of course we need your help." Her voice had that entitled whine I'd grown to hate. "We have a lot of expenses, Emma's preschool, our car payments, and now we're planning this big Christmas party. We were counting on you." I laughed without humor. "Yeah, the Christmas party you're throwing to spite me. The one where you're showing off the house I've been paying for. That's not fair." You're just jealous because you live in that tiny dump and I have a beautiful home. A beautiful home you can't afford, I replied. Look, Kate, I have my own mortgage now. I can't keep paying for your lifestyle, especially when you've made it clear where I stand with you. You and Mark need to pay your own rent from now on. But she started. No, I cut her off. You showed me my place in your life with that post. Consider my help officially ended. Goodbye, Kate. I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing again. Kate. I declined the call. Then Mom called. Then Dad. I declined them all and put my phone on silent. 10 minutes later, the text messages started flooding in. Mom, Lucy, call us right away. Kate is very upset. Dad, this isn't how we raised you to behave. Family helps family. Kate, you've ruined everything. How are we supposed to pay the rent and host Christmas now? You're doing this on purpose. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I turned off my phone and went back to my Christmas planning. The next day, I turned my phone back on to find more messages and missed calls. I deleted them all without reading them and went to work. When I got home that evening, I was surprised to find Kate's SUV parked in my driveway, with my parents' car behind it. They were all standing on my porch, looking angry. I took my time getting out of my car and walking up to them. Finally, Kate snapped, "We'd been waiting for half an hour." "I didn't invite you," I said simply. "Lucy," Mom started, her voice stern like when I was a child. "We need to talk about this ridiculous decision you've made." "There's nothing to talk about," I replied. "I'm not paying Kate's rent anymore. But we had an arrangement." Kate said. "An arrangement that was supposed to be temporary 2 years ago," I pointed out. "Mark has a good job now. You two can pay your own rent." "We were counting on that money for the Christmas party," Kate insisted. "Now we'll have to cut back on everything." "Not my problem," I said, moving to unlock my door. Kate stepped in front of me. "You can't just walk away from your responsibilities like this." "My responsibilities?" I laughed. "Since when is it my responsibility to pay for your house?" "Since you agreed to help us," Dad interjected. "You can't just change your mind." "Actually, I can," I said firmly. "And I have. Now please leave." "I don't want to discuss this anymore." "Lucy, be reasonable," Mom pleaded. "Your sister needs that house. Emma loves it there. Can't you think about someone besides yourself for once?" That was rich coming from them. I had been thinking about others, specifically Kate, for years. I'd been paying her rent while saving for my own house. Now that I have a mortgage, I simply can't afford to keep subsidizing her lifestyle. That's all there is to it. Their shocked faces would have been comical if the situation weren't so sad. They truly believed they could bully me into continuing to pay Kate's rent, even after the way they treated me. "I think you should go now," I said, moving around Kate to my door. "I have things to do." I went inside and closed the door. Through the window, I could see them standing there, looking stunned. Eventually, they left, but not before Kate kicked one of my potted plants off the porch in anger. After they were gone, I picked up the plant, repotted it, and placed it back by my door. It was bruised, but it would survive. Kind of like me. Over the next few days, I continued receiving angry messages and calls. I blocked their numbers. I needed space, and I wasn't going to let them ruin my Christmas plans. Cousin Jen called to tell me that Kate had canceled her Christmas party, saying they needed to use the money for rent instead. She was playing the victim. I just laughed as Christmas approached. I bought decorations, planned my menu, and cleaned the house from top to bottom. A few relatives called to confirm they were coming to my place, including Uncle Dan and Aunt Melissa, who had always treated me with kindness. My friend Tara offered to come early to help me set up. The day before Christmas, I put up my tree, a modest 5-footer that fit perfectly in my living room corner. I placed the few wrapped gifts I'd bought for my guests underneath it and stepped back to admire the effect. My little house looked warm, inviting, and festive. Christmas Day arrived with a light dusting of snow that made my little house look like something from a greeting card. Tara showed up at noon just as I was taking the turkey out of the oven to rest. "This place looks amazing," "Lucy," she exclaimed, looking around at the decorations. "I can't believe how much you've done with it in such a short time." "Thanks," I said, giving her a quick hug. "It's not fancy, but it's home." We spent the next hour putting the final touches on the food and setting the table. By 2 o'clock, the first guests arrived, Uncle Dan and Aunt Melissa, bearing a bottle of wine and a small potted Christmas cactus. "Housewarming gift," Aunt Melissa explained, handing me the plant. "May it grow along with your happiness in this home." More relatives and friends trickled in until my modest living room was comfortably full of people chatting, laughing, and admiring my house. Everyone brought small gifts or dishes to share, and the atmosphere was warm and festive. No one mentioned Kate or my parents, though I caught a few sympathetic glances from those who knew about the situation. At 6 o'clock, just as we were about to sit down for dinner, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Mom. "Merry Christmas, Lucy. We miss you. Please come over tonight for dessert." I stared at the message, conflicted. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part wondered if this was an olive branch. I texted back, "Merry Christmas to you too. I'm sorry, but I'm not ready to see you, Dad, or Kate yet. Maybe in the new year." I put my phone away and rejoined my guests. If Mom was upset by my response, she didn't text again. Dinner was a success. Everyone raved about the food, and the conversation flowed easily. People moved about my small house comfortably, sitting on the new sofa I'd splurged on or gathering around the dining table. No one seemed to find the space inadequate or poorly decorated. "You've done an amazing job with this place, Lucy," my cousin Jen said as she helped me clear plates after dessert. "It really feels like a home." "Thanks," I said, genuinely touched. "That means a lot." After everyone had gone home, and I was cleaning up the last few dishes, the doorbell rang. Thinking someone had forgotten something, I opened the door without checking who it was. A delivery man stood there with 4 wrapped packages. "Delivery for Lucy Wilson," he said. "I didn't order anything," I replied, confused. "They're gifts," he explained. "From the Wilson family. My parents and Kate." I looked at the tags and confirmed my suspicion. "I can't accept these," I said. "Please return them to the senders." The delivery man looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I'm just doing my job." I said, "I understand, but I'm not accepting the delivery. Please return them." Following a short debate, he eventually departed while still holding the goods. I had no idea what those crates contained, and I had no desire to find out. Now, accepting presents seemed like caving in, as if it were okay when it wasn't. I felt lighter than I had in years when I woke up the next morning. The warmth of yesterday's gathering persisted even though my house was silent. After brewing some coffee, I sat in my living room, looking at my Christmas tree and reflecting on the last few months. I had been unaware of how my family disregarded my accomplishments, how they expected me to make unacknowledged sacrifices for Kate, and how I was often an afterthought in their plans until I bought this property. It had hurt, but it had been important to break away from that routine. I felt, for the first time in my adult life, that I was living for myself rather than merely supporting the aspirations of others. It was 2 months later. Winter started to give way to early spring. Through family rumors, I learned that Kate and Mark were trying to find a less expensive flat. To help pay the rent on their home, she had apparently had to accept a part-time work at a nearby boutique. Mom had phoned a couple of times, leaving voicemails that varied between hesitant attempts at reconciliation and guilt-tripping. I wasn't prepared to answer just yet. I was able to make my mortgage payments and even establish a modest bathroom remodeling fund with the money I saved by not paying Kate's rent. On the weekends, I went out to dinner with friends, joined a local book club, and explored my new neighborhood. I ran into a man who lived a few doors down from me one Saturday when I was visiting a local coffee shop. Tom was a good-looking, easy-to-laugh English teacher at a high school. After hours of conversation, I immediately accepted his invitation to dine the next weekend. We went on 2 more dates after our first. He came over for supper and didn't seem to mind my little place. He even praised the job I had done on it. When I told him about my family's circumstances, he listened and offered support without passing judgment. I noticed that I was thinking about Kate and my parents less and less as spring gave way to summer. The pain had subsided from a searing aching to a dull ache, but it was still there. I didn't have time to think about the past because I was too busy living my life, working, dating Tom, and turning my house into a home. I would occasionally consider next Christmas while sitting on my front porch in the evening and watching the sunset with Tom at my side. I might be prepared to get in touch with my family once more by then. Perhaps not. In any case, I knew I would be all right. I had received more than simply a place to live in my tiny home. It had provided me with the courage to advocate for myself, to value myself, and to create a life that was genuinely mine. For that type of independence, no mortgage payment could ever be too large.